You're listening to Back Pew Convos.
I'm Shawn.
And I'm Sal. And this is the podcast God wants you to listen to.
So if you want to remain in God's will, have a sit down.
Grab a beverage of your choice.
And have a listen.
You're welcome.
In here. What are you even here for? What in the freak? What? Huh? 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 Who? Who says it? Says who?
Who says?
So
we're disco. We're live.
we are that.
We are live
Speed
in color.
and color. So I'm here because there's currently 30 plus church ladies at my home.
Yeah.
That's a true story.
And I was like, I'll literally do anything other than that, including being on this podcast.
So he's crashing the pod.
So we know times are desperate.
Yeah,
If he has to resort to coming on this podcast, we know times are desperate.
exactly.
And how?
And how?
Oh, wearing my Kill the Snake hat again.
Yeah.
Because why not?
Why not?
How old were you approximately
Saw that.
when you got that?
What?
How old were you approximately when that came into the picture? 13-ish?
I was approximately 15.
How approximately?
I think.
Fitting?
Somewhere around there. I was a teenager,
Yeah.
pretty sure.
It was a good yard sale find from Madre
Tu madre.
to Madre.
I can get that a little closer.
Yep.
Um,
Kind of went back and forth, but you pretty much owned that hat for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've used it. I have wore it quite a bit more.
Yeah.
Than you
Well, there was
through the years.
what was the Southern Gospel one? Didn't you have one that? So I love Southern Gospel music or something.
I have one that says I love gospel music.
Yeah.
It doesn't say Southern specifically.
It could be Northern or.
Isn't all gospel
Could be.
music Southern?
No.
Feels like a Southern thing.
Southeastern. I don't know.
Actually, when I think of gospel music, I think more of like black church
Yeah.
organs, and I think more of folks like Ty Tribbett.
I love when you just drop names like that. Like I know who that is.
Not Tribbett.
Yeah, I think that's actually what comes to my mind is people like that, and like there's some other ones I cannot think of. There's one in particular one guy in particular I'm trying to think of his name right now. I can't think of it.
Is he the one that wrote the "Tell Me What Can I Do"? Didn't Ty Tribbett write that one?
I don't think he wrote it, but
Or
it was on
he-
one of his albums.
yeah.
Yes, he did it with the guy that wrote it. I can't remember his name though.
Yeah.
And then there was anyway, there's
William McDowell, maybe.
Yeah, he would be someone I guess I would consider. That those type of guys are the ones that I think
Yeah,
of whenever I think
that's
of
not
gospel
my-
music.
It's not my style either, but I do know a few names to drop.
But it's not Crab Family or something
Yeah.
like that, Yeah,
Jason, he good old boy.
Jason.
Yeah, man.
Sounds like I don't have a clue.
It's a good thing that you don't know about the Crab Family, I think.
Yeah, Dad's gonna disown you for saying that.
Well, it happens.
I can pretty confidently say that I've never heard any of their songs. I mean, I've definitely heard them performed, like
I was
in
gonna
church,
say,
but I haven't heard like crap. I've never heard them play.
Well, if it wasn't for copyright issues, I would just play some right now.
Yeah. Actually, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's not.
It's fine.
The last music I
Fine.
listened to was Bob Marley, so I'm just gonna chill on that mellow.
All right.
I do love Bob. Hey, Bob, I did my Spotify Wrapped, and Bob was number 1 yet again.
Bob was my number one also.
Oh, mine
This
was
is-
so weird.
This is the actually the first time in 3 years that Trevor Hall was not my most listened to artist.
Oh,
He was number
interesting.
4 this year. So
Bob pretty consistently stays up there because I listen to more audiobooks and podcasts than I listen to music. But whenever I do listen to music, I like to listen to Bob or if I'm not listening to Bab, then I'm listening to. Occasionally, I'll listen to a worship song, like just whatever we're learning, or if I need to remember how a song starts, I'll like play it real quick. Or if I'm lifting, sometimes I'll lift and listen to some metal.
Yeah.
You know, my listening habits have really evolved lately because I was sort of like that to where I almost never listen to music. It was all podcasts. I'd really never have listened to audiobooks. I don't really I feel like I just don't retain any of it. My mind starts wandering and it's wasting my time to even listen to them. But lately I've been listening to a lot more music again, just not listening to as much other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the exact opposite. I'm more music, less podcasts. But I like to change that. I haven't yet. And also, Spotify is a liar. My top 5. Okay, some of these I can get behind. Under Oath, my number 1, which I love Under Oath, but can't say they were my most listened to. And then Deftones, I can agree with that. Fit for a King, obviously. Sleep Token, and then Mitchell Tenpenny, which is a country pop artist.
Yeah.
I'm like, I listened to him a little bit, but not top 5.
You know what? That reminds me. I actually had country in my top 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I know exactly who's to blame for that.
Your wife?
Candace Lynn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't on mine. I'd say that pretty confidently. It did say my average listening age, or my my listening age was 65.
That's exactly what mine said too.
Mine said 17. I swear.
Yeah, mine was exactly that. It was 65.
My most listened to artist was Bob Marley, and it said I was in like the top some odd like listened to more Bob than like 99.8% of people on the planet. So they're from the 70s and 60s.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
and 80s.
Word.
I was in my podcast. I was in the top 1% of listeners of Grace Saves All again.
Was that your number 1?
Yeah, it was. I actually am a little surprised, but
I was a little surprised by all of mine. Actually, I wasn't surprised. My number 1 listened to podcast was Rethinking Faith. And I kind of knew that one was coming. I've talked about that show a lot on the pod itself because I listened to it so much. And number 2 was Homebrewed Christianity. So those were pretty expected. Music-wise, I was surprised, though, because I do listen to a lot of Bob, but I didn't think it was going to be my number 1 this year. I don't know.
I think my podcasts were you guys, obviously.
Yeah.
And then
number 1?
I think so. Let me check. It definitely was not Ben Shapiro this year. Actually, I take that back. KSR, Kentucky Sports Radio, the Black Sheep podcast. So they do like interviews with musical artists. Then you guys are in there. Something called Take Root. I don't know. A couple weirdo guys named Peyton and Andrew. I don't know how that got on there. And then Interrupted by Matt Jones. He's a KSR guy.
Right.
Yeah, but
I'm playing the drum beat sound. I don't know if it's going to come through or not.
Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't.
Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't.
my top albums were Under Oath, The Place After This One, which was the new one.
I haven't even listened to it.
Sleep Token, even in Arcadia.
I listened to that one a ton.
Clockworked by Stray from the Path. And Spirit Box, Tsunami Sea. So pretty heavy. Like her heavy.
I think I can't remember what my most listened to album was. It may have been even in Arcadia, actually.
Mine was Kaya, Bob Marley. Most listened to song was I know this could be a shocker. Love Is My Religion by Ziggy Marley.
I don't remember what my song was, but
And Paper Planes by MIA, number 2.
I remember seeing that on yours whenever you sent that to me. And I was like, that's kind of an older one now.
Yeah.
Yours was Pink Pony Club, probably, Shawn.
Huh?
Yours was probably Pink Pony Club.
Nah.
I was actually pretty surprised that wasn't in my top 5. I'm going to be honest.
It was.
Well, there's actually a version of it on Spotify. I think the artist's name is Lauren Babbitt or Babbitt.
Babbitt.
But she does that song,
Yeah.
but does like a rock version of it. And
Yeah,
really
I know
like
her.
that.
Yeah, well, not personally, but I've seen.
Oh yeah, of
We
course.
didn't like
Oh, Lord.
ever meet, but yeah, she's good.
Not
She
me
does-
personally, but a guy I know.
A guy I know.
No.
Him and her. Got it on point.
No, they didn't.
No, they didn't. Oh, Chris Farley.
Gone too soon.
Yes, sir. So did he just die from being fat? Like just being overweight?
No.
No, it was drugs, right?
Yeah.
I don't. Well, I never knew for sure exactly.
I think it was.
Heart
I think it was
attack, right?
actually heart attack, but it was
Drug induced.
Yeah.
I mean, I would assume the weight didn't help,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Also, have you guys been watching? Or have you watched the new the new Puff Daddy documentary on Netflix?
No, I have no idea.
Wild.
I
didn't even know there was one, to be honest.
I don't really care, I guess, too much about that.
Well, it's pretty wild.
I haven't cared enough to watch it. You know,
Learn some new things I didn't know about
Mm.
the whole situation.
well,
I won't spoil you guys because I know you're time to watch it now based on your reactions.
I can't wait.
Love
Actually, me and Kel started the Lord of the Rings again. I've watched it a million times, but
Heck yeah.
we took the Black Friday deal on the HBO Max was like $2.99 for a year, so we like subscribed to that, and then we were just looking through there, and all three of those are on there. So, started
stuff.
over again, Fellowship of the Ring.
The extended versions or
Both. You can. I mean, the one we watched wasn't the extended version because it was 4 hours long, and we was for sure going to fall asleep.
yeah,
But
for sure.
Yeah, I just recently watched all of them.
Good stuff. We're watching that All
stuff,
Her
for sure.
Faults, I think is Liz said that Candace and Kelly both said to watch it so they could talk about it.
So apparently my wife has watched it.
yeah,
Yes, it's true crime type stuff.
Yeah.
So
I have not seen it.
it's good. We're not finished with it yet, but we'll so far.
I just really with the Lord of the Rings series, man. There's just so many layers and there's so many themes embedded within it
yeah.
that like every time you watch it with a fresh set of eyes, there's new stuff to glean out of it.
Right.
There's just so much, so good.
Yep.
Yeah.
You could never watch it enough times. It's almost like the way we talk about the Bible, right? Like it's depending on what lens you approach it with, you're going to get something different out of it, and you can read it a million times and never get the same thing. There's always something else to get out of it, right? Like it's sort of
Right.
in that same sort of vein, I think.
Yeah. Kind of like the Karate Kid too. I put that in there with. I'm just kidding, but not kidding, kind of.
There's lessons to be learned there.
For sure. Miyagi was definitely a disciple.
My favorite quote: "Everyone's a guru, right? You know how to listen."
That's right. Lots
Yeah.
of life lessons in there, though, in the Karate Kid stuff.
Yeah, the whole Miyagi-Do system, at least from the movies. I don't know. I don't know if you include the Cobra Kai series or not, but at least in the movies, it is a pretty like I am pretty convinced that the way of Jesus is wholly nonviolent. But, you know, the way that Miyagi goes about teaching, like even like what in the first movie, what he says is like the reason that he trains is so he doesn't fight, is to not fight.
Yeah.
You know, like even the whole system and the whole way that he went about training him was, and it was a Christ-like way in a sense, you know.
Yep.
But yeah.
Faux show.
Anyway, there's lessons to be learned there. That's all I'm saying. Enemy love and stuff, you know.
For sure.
But then, you know, I don't know. That is something I've been thinking about some lately. Is the whole just war and nonviolence, and like, because the whole thing about nonviolence and everything is like the big thing that everyone's like, well, what about this, you guy, you, is like standing up for people that are innocent.
Right.
You know, like, what do you do? Like, are you just supposed to like stand by and let someone, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's one of the biggest things.
It's sort of like the scenario of like imagine if you were in a God forbid, like a mass shooting incident, and you had an ability to stop through means of your own violence, a means to prevent that from happening, from, in a sense, taking one life to save multiple, you know what I mean?
Right.
Would that be the more ethical thing to do than to simply let this person wreak havoc on however many people,
Mm-hmm. You know what actually made me think about that was the fact that, like, at the end of the first movie, the Karate Kid movie, Miyagi, he does. But if you think about what actually happens, he kind of lets Kreese hurt himself. Like, Miyagi actually never hit Kreese, right? Am I not remembering that
He
right?
honked his nose.
He honked his nose.
Yeah.
Yes, to show him. It's actually, now I'm thinking about it, there's some really cool stuff in that whole scene if you think about it,
Dude, I told you.
because, like, Miyagi just moves out of the way and lets Kreese's own anger be the thing that drives. Like, he's trying to hit Miyagi, and he gets out of all he does is move out of the way and let Kreese experience the result, the consequences of his own anger.
Right.
And so, and then he honks his nose at the end, which is kind of just a way of, like, you could see that as just like Miyagi trying to point out the ridiculousness of the anger, of the reaction that he had,
Right.
Yeah, because then Daniel says, "You could have killed him, couldn't you?" And he's like, and he's like, "Well, why didn't you then?" And he was like, I forget the quote exactly, but it's like, sometimes basically living with anger is worse punishment than death.
Yeah.
See, I was actually, funny enough that you're talking
Good stuff.
that you're talking in this, you were thinking about this kind of stuff, because I've been not really, I wouldn't have said I've been thinking about like holy violence or just war, but I have sort of, since I've been watching The Lord of the Rings, and I've been sort of noticing the sort of the quote unquote biblical themes or whatever throughout the films, and I was sort of thinking about the violence in it and how, because it's how that fits into the equation, right? Because it's not that they don't fight.
Yeah.
There's,
Right.
I mean, the Fellowship and their allies, they fight back. So it's not like they're wholly non-violent. But yeah, I don't know. So I've been kind of thinking about that.
Right. And then, I mean, of course, there is a spiritual battle, in a sense, that we are called to fight. But even that fight it's about truth and lies.
Right.
It's a battle in your mind. It's a battle that this is something actually that came up in Bible study. We didn't end up going this direction, so I didn't get to say any of this that night, but it was the section from 2 Timothy 4, whenever Paul talks about fighting the good fight, running the race, I fought the good fight. But he talks about, like right before that, he's talking about looking for his appearing, or maybe it's right after that. Anyway, it's in that general area. But anyway, like the thought that came to my mind was like, whenever Paul talks about fighting, he's also the guy that wrote about, well, depending on who authored what, but the whole armor of God, right? But like the whole armor of God, it's not even your armor, it's his armor, and his armor is, he has no armor, but like what came to mind was how even in those instances, whenever there is language of like fighting in scripture, you have to look at like what the fight is how did Jesus fight?
Right.
That's
what I was thinking of, is you've got to flip everything upside down, essentially. Yeah. It always is, right? So we would say, the Christians, would say that Jesus won, quote unquote, defeated death or whatever by dying, but that looks like a loss, like that's not that's not a win. Come on.
Yeah. And what made me think about it right now in this context was just the idea of fighting and like imposing your will on someone else. Like that's kind of how you would typically think about it, or at least that's how I typically think about, coming from like, especially from like MMA or like some kind of like jiu-jitsu specifically. Like it's about imposing your will on the other person.
Right.
So like but if you think about how Jesus fought, it's not that at all. It's actually about submitting your will to the Father. It's about submission. It's not about
Right.
trying to impose your will or trying to dominate or try to, it's about submission, which does, again, it looks like a loss, right?
Right.
But that's how
it'd
you
be like
fight.
the Cobra Kai, like strike first, strike hard, no mercy.
Right, exactly. That's the way of the world.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the way of empire.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the funny thing about thinking through the themes that I'm talking about in The Lord of the Rings, right? Is because to me, at least in this most recent watch that I did, I was looking at it through the eyes. It seemed pretty clear to me that that Sauron represented like the empire, right? Like domination and empire. It's like what happens when you sort of the driving force behind the power of the ring, right? Like the embodiment of what it leads to, ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
And so in fighting against Sauron, it's fighting against empire, it's in domination, right? So it's not really the tricky thing about that is that there's almost always a human element to that too, though. You know what I mean? Like to take down the empire, to fight the empire, you've got to fight, or I don't want to say you got to, but it appears as though you have to fight the fleshly embodiment of it, right? Like the people that are standing up, representing it, fighting on behalf of empire. So,
right.
Yeah. Has either one of y'all ever really looked into Tolkien much to check out his, I guess, theology or whatever?
Yeah, he was Catholic.
I mean, I know there's a lot of seems like spiritual references
Oh yeah.
in there, so I was just
Yeah.
hadn't really did a deep dive into Tolkien that much, really. But I'm curious.
Yeah, he was a Catholic. Definitely. I mean, it's deeply embedded in this, in his stories.
I'm pretty sure him and C.S. Lewis knew each other pretty well too. I think.
Yeah.
So like he was Tolkien was a Christian for sure.
Yeah.
And he intentionally, I guess imported those messages into his stories. That's what the stories are about.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I was right off the bat sort of noticing some like almost direct correlations between Revelation, right? Like Sauron really did, to me, was like the beast of empire, and then Saruman was like the Antichrist figure. It's like the figurehead that rides the beast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that embodies it. But then his kind of counter is Gandalf, which embodies a sort of Christ-likeness. I wouldn't say he's the full embodiment, like whereas we would relate Jesus as the full embodiment of what Christ is. Gandalf is more of an aspect of that, I think. But
yeah, I mean,
Gandalf. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're good.
I was gonna say, like, every time I see the scene with Gandalf, the white, I guess, when he's in all the white with the hair and on the horse and stuff, it kind of reminds me of like maybe like what a Jesus would look like. You know what I mean? Like,
well, the funny thing about that is actually when he returns as the white. So what he actually descended. Because remember, he's fighting the Balrog and falls into the abyss.
Yeah.
So he literally descends into the abyss fighting the enemy and then is resurrected as Gandalf the White. So it is like a...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I can see the correlation.
What really made me think about that, what really made me sort of think about it was at the very beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring, whenever he first finds the ring, and then Bilbo, when he's leaving, he just drops it on the ground, and Gandalf goes to pick it up, and he feels the power off of it. He just leaves it laying in the floor.
Yeah.
So whenever Frodo comes in, and Frodo will pick it up, but then he finds out what it is. He tries to give it to Gandalf, and Gandalf is like, I would undoubtedly want to use this power for the benefit of the world, to make the world a better place, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
but I'm too powerful. Like, I would give the ring access to too great of a power. And automatically that made me think of like the temptation of Christ, right? Like he's being offered the power to rule the nations.
Yeah.
Just bow to me, bow to domination and power, and you can rule all of the nations. And I would rule them good. I would be good at it. I would make the world a better place. You know what I mean? But like that power inherently corrupts.
Mm-hmm.
And so he knows that, like, I would desire to do good with this, but it would corrupt me. And then when it corrupted me, that's a bad deal, you know, because I've got too much power. So it really was to me like the temptation moment of Jesus there.
Yeah. See, that's actually one of the elements of it that made me think, because I actually think that you could see Frodo also as a Christ-like character.
For sure.
For sure.
I mean, he's carrying the cross.
Yeah. Yeah.
Almost like the son.
I mean, yeah.
I don't know. The son and even though it's Gandalf's not his like father technically.
To me, I thought Frodo was more representative of humanity, of us carrying on, carrying our own cross. Sort of him and Sam are sort of one character, but you've got the Frodo who is the one bearing his own cross, and ultimately to his own demise. He has to carry his cross.
Yeah.
But then Sam represents the kingdom life, like sort of the resurrected life, where he's the embodiment of agape and completely not focused on himself, but everyone else. Yeah. So like, it's like together they make one whole sort of character arc from pre-salvation, born againness to post, you know?
Yeah. And Sam really doesn't seem to ever be tempted, at least in the movies.
Exactly.
By the ring. There was do you remember who I was talking about? It's a character that's not in the movies, but it's in the book.
I remember you telling me about it, but I don't remember his name.
Dadgum. I might try and see if I can pull that up real quick.
I didn't read the books. Well, I did, but it was a long time ago. So
actually thought it was really cool that the wraiths, like, they're a pretty cool concept as well, because it kind of shows how they aren't just evil, but what they did is they completely lost their own self-identity, right? Like they were individuals at one time, and their individualness completely evaporated till now they're just faceless, mindless, following directions, just chasing after the thing that actually sucked the life out of them in the first place. So, you know what I mean? So, like, that's a pretty cool concept, too, of how, like, those things that we think we desire that give us pleasure, whether it be, like, fleshly pleasures or in the case of the movie there, power, domination, like, those are the things that we are constantly searching after, but the whole time that they sucked the life out of us, right? Like, that's not what gives us life, but it's what we desire, even though it causes us to lose our life. I don't know. It's weird.
Right. Tom Bombadil was the guy I was trying to remember from the book, but not the movie, that he's just entirely not like so unaffected by the draw of the ring that he's like kind of making light of it and like just kind of like playing with it like it's not a big deal. He's just completely not, almost like in a childlike way, doesn't really, just kind of playing with it, is like making light of it, and I think that that's a pretty cool character that maybe should have been implemented into the movies.
What I think is cool about how he employed different characters that they are all affected by the ring in different ways like that is because it really does sort of give a legs to the idea of crucifying the flesh. Like, it's like there's in a character like Tom that you're talking about there, or Sam, it's like there's nothing for it to latch onto and take a hold of. You know what I mean? Like, it's like they've crucified that part of them to where there's nothing for it to take root in the first place.
Yeah. I heard a quote today. I started, well, Actually, I started 2 different audiobooks today, which is a bad idea. But I started one, and one of the, and this might actually be a good segue into the actual topic for today. But it was a quote from the Hobbit movie. I don't know if it's in the book or not. But it's essentially, I'm just going to paraphrase. I don't know the exact quote, but Gandalf asks Bilbo if he wants to go on an adventure, and Bilbo's like, "No," like who would want to do something silly like that? And then I can't remember what Gandalf says to him. Something about adventure, and Bilbo was like, "Well, can you promise that if I go on this adventure, I'm coming back?" And he says, "No, I can't. I can't promise you that you're going to come back from this adventure. That if you go on it, and even if you do return, you're not going to be the same." So I thought that was pretty applicable to the whole conversation of deconstruction and discipleship.
Right.
Oh,
so
segue
in.
You guys got me. I thought we were talking about Lord of the Rings and Karate Kid tonight.
Well, we can.
You're gonna try to do all this spiritual stuff on me.
We can.
I'm playing.
We can talk about Lord of the Rings the whole time. I don't care.
You're never going to run out of stuff to talk about.
I know, dude. When I saw Return of the King in theaters, I literally was in tears not because it was so good, which it was, but just that was it. Like Tolkien didn't write another book, and then he's dead, so it's like,
yeah,
that's it. But
I didn't think the Hobbit movies were as good.
No, they were good, but
I liked them. But
we were just starving for anything in that realm, I guess. Peter Jackson.
I haven't watched that series. There's a series.
It's on Amazon. Yeah, I haven't watched it either.
It's kind of buns.
Was it?
I thought.
I'm going to watch it. Anyway.
Buns.
As the kids say.
Buns, as is.
Buns, bro.
So Lord of the Rings?
No, I mean, we can deconstruct and disciple if we want.
I actually thought that this was a pretty interesting topic. Because you sent me a list of 1 million topics.
Yeah, I had chat develop some ideas for us.
And there was a lot of good ones on there, but they were just all kind of all over the place, as far as just wherever we wanted to take, But this one really stood out to me. I thought it was pretty interesting. Really, part of it is because this is where our show started.
Mm-hmm.
Was deconstruction. That was sort of our first topic, or kind of the catalyst for the whole thing, really, was deconstruction.
Yeah.
So that one's always an interesting one. It's not something that we've talked about recently.
Yeah. I'm going to be real honest. I have had a hard time preparing for this one.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? In what way?
For one, I really feel like the topic itself is just more wider. It's bigger than I feel like I realized whenever we talked about it before. So like, I guess what I mean is like there's so much to consider with it. There's so many different angles one could come about it. And there's so many different reasons that people do deconstruct. There's so many different ways people could think about what even deconstruction is, and talk about it, and like what someone means by their experience of it versus what someone else means by it are different things. Like there's just so much. I guess I've just kind of like, as I've been trying to think about it more, I just kind of had like a sense that like, I don't even, like, there's so much to actually talk about with it that I don't even know where to focus my energy at. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't really think about it from that perspective, but that's kind of an emphasis that there's so many different directions you can take with it, right? Because I didn't really think about it from that direction. Really, I was more focused, because I don't disagree with you. There's 1 million different ways you can go with it. I was just focused more on, the only thing I can speak to is my own experience. You know what I mean? So I was just thinking from my own perspective. But what stood out to me about the topic is the way it was written, actually, the way chat presented it to us, because the topic was presented as deconstruction versus discipleship. And that word versus there implies that these are two competing things, that you're either deconstructing or you're being a disciple, but you can't be both at the same time because those are opposed forces, right? And my experience is that is not the case at all. And that's what attracted me initially to the topic itself, you know?
I thought about that too, because because again, there's so many ways you could take it. You could, because I also had been thinking about it in terms of like, if you change the verses to "and," that changes the conversation.
Yes.
But even if you just keep it with the verses, what came to my mind was not as if they're two things pitted against each other, which is what verses means, but like, I was thinking of it more from the angle of like, I don't know. I don't know if this kind of just like is almost all that I have to say about it. So I don't know if I want to go to just spill all the beans automatically. But like, basically, I think that discipleship includes doubt. It includes seeking. It includes all kinds of things that people might label as deconstruction. But I think that the type of deconstruction that I experienced personally could have possibly been avoided. And this is a hard thing. This is another thing I thought about in talking about this topic, because I really hope that I can say what I need to say. Both, I really hope that that both things can happen, that we can both, I don't know how to even word the things that I'm trying to say right now. I'm hoping that there's two things that I want to accomplish. And I hope that both can be accomplished. One, I want to say what I need to say in the right spirit. Number two, I pray that it's heard in the right spirit. That said, I feel like a lot of what I experienced as deconstruction maybe could have been avoided if there was more discipleship in my upbringing. And again, it depends on what we mean by discipleship. There's so many ways.
Well, that's actually where I was going to start with, is I think that when we say we're throwing out these words, and I think that we need to kind of define what it is that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because then that sort of shows, I think, what it helps to illustrate what it is that you're trying to say, right? So to me, when I think about the word disciple is someone who follows, right? Like a disciple of Jesus is someone who follows the way of Jesus. So discipleship would be the practice of doing that, right? It would be the practice of following Jesus. How do we employ this in practice? To me, that's what I mean when I say it, you know? So I don't know. What do you think? Do you agree with that definition, or do you look at it a little differently?
No, I do. There's a couple examples actually from Scripture that I've thought about bringing up, but I won't go and look them up and read them. But like the one example I thought of was when it's from John's Gospel, and it's when, I think it's in the first chapter actually. It's at the very beginning, and I think it's a couple of John's disciples maybe come to Jesus and they ask where he's staying, and he says, come and see, and they go with him. So I think part of what it means to be a disciple is to, and this is not, it's not what you said, it's just a different angle on it. It's not just following Jesus, it's being where he is. So like there, what it means to abide is to just stay with, like staying with Jesus.
The dude abides.
Right. The disciple abides. I think that part of what it means to be a disciple is to stay with, to abide with, to stay with Jesus. And so in that sense, I think there is a sense in which deconstruction can be, depending on how it happens, it can be different than discipleship. Like that's one example, of someone of what these disciples did. They decided to stay with Jesus and be where he was. And it also says in John's Gospel that he is close to the Father's heart. right? So that's another aspect of what I think it means to be a disciple, is to be where Jesus is, and that's close to the Father's heart.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by abiding where Jesus is
So like I think practically what that means
for us today?
Yeah, is to, when I say be where he is, well, I think that he's everywhere, which is, it's, but I think specifically, who is he with in the Gospels? He's with the marginalized. He's with the downtrodden. He's with
Right.
the poor, the sick, the hungry. He's with the sinners. He's eating with the sinners. That's where you find him in the Gospels. And he says, in Matthew 25, what have you done to the least of these, you've done to me.
Right.
So, like, I think that as far as, like, what we can do to be near him, other than, like, having that sort of internal, like, recognition of Christ in you and allowing and growing in that understanding and that knowledge and that experience, other than that, I think what you do is you are where he is, in the sense of, like, you go out to be where he, with those that are sick, or in those that are hungry, like those that are in need. But the needs don't always present themselves in those obvious ways either, though. Like I said, Christ is everywhere. Christ is all and in all. That's what it says in Colossians. So, like, even just what we're doing right now, I think, is, in a sense, abiding.
Right. Yeah, that's what I thought you meant, but I just wanted to clarify it and make sure I understood. But yeah.
So Shawn, like earlier when you said you feel like maybe some of your deconstruction may not have been necessary if there was more discipleship. So by that, do you mean kind of like maybe if people were more honest about, hey, it's okay to feel this way, it's okay to question these things and to, quote unquote, work out your own salvation, that you may not have had? Is that kind of what you meant by that? Or
Well, I kind of meant a few different things by that. But that's part of it. Yeah. I think that part of it would be, I didn't, whether I'm right or wrong about this, I did not feel like there was a safe, like it was safe to ask questions. Specifically, the kind of questions I was asking.
Yeah.
Didn't feel like there was a safe environment to ask those questions. And I'd heard others ask those questions at times and been just utterly unsatisfied with the answers given.
Yeah.
And again, I hope that this is heard rightly. I'm not trying to sort of disparage.
It's not a
like,
knock on like
Right.
leadership of our church or anything.
Yeah, or mom and dad.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to speak bad about anyone or
Yeah. I mean,
run anyone down.
one of the things I've realized about deconstruction in my experience with it is that I can only speak to the way I experienced it. So I may talk about the way I experienced the way something was presented to me or taught to me in the past, and then that the other party that was involved in that situation could look back on it and be like, well, that's not what I was saying at all. That very well may be true, but that's the way I perceived it. That's the way it took root within me. You know what I mean? And so, like, I can only react to and process things as I internalize them, right? So even if it's not something that you meant, or maybe the failure was on my part to understand, regardless, that's where I was, and I had to deconstruct through it.
Right.
So even saying that, you have to realize, like, when I talk about my past, I'm really talking about the way I internalized it and the way I understood it, regardless of what was being told to me. So it's not a slander against the people that are involved in my past,
Yeah.
Yeah. I think with our church specifically, which, I mean, me and you grew up in the same church and we're brothers, obviously, so same household. Al was kind of indirectly, I guess, through Kelly brought in, to our church. But the way we were taught, there really wasn't, I don't feel like that it would have been bad to ask questions. But up until like the last maybe 5 to 7 years, like the church has definitely went a totally different way, good or bad, depending on who you ask. But I feel like when we were like Christ Gospel or very, very strong Pentecostal, or however you want to word it, like very Pentecostal, I feel like then it would have been a lot harder to ask those questions without feeling, like people are going to be like, well, you have a spirit on you. Let's get you up front and pray for you. I mean, but I mean, that's legit.
Yeah, that was a legitimate.
Like I would be literally scared to say sometimes, hey, I feel this way because of the reaction that you would probably get.
Right.
Well, let's take you up front and pray for you. And the crazy part is like they didn't even think, they thought that they were doing something good for you. Like I don't think they were doing it out of, oh well, we got to, I think that they were doing it out of love and what they knew.
Right.
It's just, See,
the funny thing is I would have affirmed the statement that you made that we're talking about right now, that like perhaps if my past had been different, maybe some of the deconstruction aspect of it could have been avoided, but not for the asking questions thing. It was a wholly different reason, but you actually said there was multiple reasons, so this is probably one of them too. But
Yeah.
But for me, it wasn't. Even though I kind of agree, even though I grew up in a different church and a different culture, kind of different culture, I guess.
I think so.
I still would resonate with that. That sometimes, like in a institutionalized setting, hard questions aren't always welcomed. When you're pushing the boundaries of what people are comfortable with, and especially when we're talking about the implications are eternal damnation, that's a pretty steep price for you to be asking some of these really difficult questions.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't think that those questions were always necessarily welcome. But for me, I think when I say that some aspects of my deconstruction maybe could have been avoided if my past had been slightly different, was like, I really think that like when we talk about, and this is kind of ties into the whole thing about how they're not two different things, but really just discipleship and deconstruction are one and the same process, or part of one and the same process, is that we're called to be disciples of Jesus, not disciples of an institution or a country or a political party or a X, Y, and Z. We're called to be disciples of Jesus. And part of what I deconstructed through my journey, I felt like, even though deconstruction is sort of painted as like opposed to God, was just my desire to follow Jesus. It was to get to know Jesus better and to, learn his teachings and to immerse myself in that way. And that caused a deconstruction of some of my previously held beliefs, and as a result, actions even. So when I say that perhaps some of my deconstruction would be avoided, it's simply just discipleship as far as following Jesus rather than a political party or an institution or a church teaching. Yeah. Like if there was more actual discipleship of Jesus, then I wouldn't have had to deconstruct so much stuff because we would have already been following it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
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 Something I brought up to Shawn on the way up here even was like, is deconstruction, could it also be labeled as just simply working out your own salvation?
I think so.
To me, it's basically the same thing in a way, because I think it's an ongoing process that really maybe never ends. Like, I guess it like goes back to your definition of what it really means, but but essentially deconstructing is revisiting things and seeing, okay, well, this worked for me, but this maybe doesn't work for me. To me, it's the same thing as working out your own salvation. And I don't know. I think that maybe sounds a little less, I don't know, evil or whatever the word you want to use. Deconstruction sometimes gets a really...
Now, don't you know deconstruction is sexy?
It's... A lot of the older crowd that's a bad word for them. You
I
know,
know.
it's like it just means that you're
Well, and to back to Shawn's point, deconstruction is so individualized, right? That's for somebody like the three of us who, have deconstructed certain aspects and reconstructed and deconstructed again. And like you said, it's a continual, never-ending process. Like that I would relate to working out your own salvation, just like you said. Some people, I think, have their experience with deconstruction is they tore the whole house down and then walked away from the rubble. You know what I mean? Well, like there's no, and maybe that is working out their own salvation. Who am I to say that it's not? But it wouldn't be, at least in classical thought of Christianity, but maybe.
Yeah, I that's what I was thinking as you were saying that. Like, to me, it's not. I don't know that I would say all forms of deconstruction are just working out your own salvation. Personally, I don't know that I would say that. I think it depends on what you do, how it goes, where you end up.
Right.
Yeah, it may not end up in salvation ultimately.
Well,
I guess
ultimately, I think it will.
Well, I mean,
just not like.
Well, I mean,
I think what I'm really trying to,
I know what you're saying.
what I'm really trying to press into, and I'm not going to make any sort of definitive statement about this, but I kind of realized it as I was saying it, and that's why I said some of the things I just did. It's like maybe their salvation looks different than what we expect it to. So it's easy for us to look at maybe somebody who's deconstructed their entire faith and never reconstructed it and say, well, see, that wasn't, they didn't work out their salvation. Maybe that was their salvation. I don't know. Who am I to say that?
Yeah.
I think that would make a lot of people uncomfortable, but I don't, these days I'm okay with some of that uncomfortableness.
Sure.
Yeah, that I have just a lot more. Like I said before, I guess I've just thought about so many different avenues with this that I never really made any traction with any of them.
Yeah.
So, like, because what was coming to my mind just then was like, one of the thoughts that I've had through this is like, and I know that this isn't fair. It's not fair for me to say this, and I don't know that I believe it. It's just a thought that I had.
Right.
Was that if you're someone who has never had a second thought, are you saved? Or do you have genuine faith?
Well, that's actually really related to, because when he was asking his question a while ago, I was thinking, really, deconstruction, I think, is just being honest that you don't have it all figured out. Ultimately, because because everything and we talk about this every week, how theology, everything is attached. There's nothing that happens in a silo. It leads to another thing, or it's tied to something else. And so, like, when you rethink one aspect of your faith and your religion, it affects everything else that trickles out of that, right? You have to. So, like, if you have never deconstructed anything, that means essentially what you're saying is like, well, I was just handed the perfect truth and I never had to rethink any of it. I never had to think through any of it. Like, nobody believes that. Like, if you're just being honest with yourself, like, I mean, I guess I don't want to say nobody. Maybe there are some mindless drones who have never thought about anything, but like, I feel like if you have any sort of rational thought at all, you've rethought something, some aspect that, I mean, and then that's had to have led to something else, or you're just not thinking through it. Like, to me, that's deconstruction, is literally just being honest that you don't have it all figured out. I'm thinking through things actively.
I guess I would be less, at the moment, I would be less willing to say that everybody has at some point than you are. But, because I don't know,
well, that's why I was stopping myself mid-sentence of like, now that I'm saying it, I don't know.
Like that, I think there may just be some folks that whatever they were handed, they received it and they never thought about it.
Right. But when you put it in those terms, I think even those people would be like, no, of course I don't know everything. I don't have it all figured out.
Right.
Yeah.
But that is what you're saying.
I think there is a generational thing with that too. So people like our parents' age and in that age group, I think you probably hear about less deconstructing in that age group. Maybe because they don't, at this stage in their life, they don't want to potentially even open that bag up. Just, I don't know. Like, I'm just thinking about like mom and dad. Like, I don't think they would ever say that they deconstructed or would even. I just maybe they just don't have the right terminology of it, or don't have the right. I don't want to say the right understanding, but the understanding of it that we have. It's a lot more simple, but it can be more simple than what we're making it sound, but it can also be a lot more difficult, I guess. I don't know.
I definitely don't think any part of it is easy. And that's the thing is like, I think most people who are critical thinking have thought through aspects of their faith, maybe changed their mind about certain things here or there. But none of it's easy, man. Like you're talking about, I mean, Shawn, you recently made a comment, I think it was maybe 3 or 4 episodes ago, but you made a comment that like, essentially your entire personality is wrapped up in who you think Jesus is, right? Like that's what you said. Like that's a heavy price to pay to start rethinking things. You know what I mean? You're talking about your entire self-identification.
Yeah.
Not to mention our communities, like marriage, children, relationships, like literally everything ties into it, you know? So
Yeah.
no aspect of deconstruction is easy. It's a heavy price to pay.
Right.
As someone who's been through, essentially in a process of deconstruction for the last 10 plus years, I can tell you it feels that's actually funny enough. I was trying to share something with you the other day from my chat, but I had to be careful of not that I had to be careful. I didn't say anything mean, but there was certain aspects of it I didn't want you to see because it was me being vulnerable and this is probably unhealthy, by the way, but sometimes through these theological conversations that I have with ChatGPT, I sort of use it as a little bit of therapy of like, we talk through things and then I'm like, and man, this makes me feel so odd or so alone. You know what I mean? And like some of that was in that chat that I was trying to share with you that I didn't necessarily want you to see about how some of this, like I feel because of my deconstruction and what it's done to me, where I'm at today, sometimes it does feel lonely. It makes me feel like the odd one, that people look at me like I'm a crazy person or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Don't want to come off looking soft to the homies.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, I don't know. I don't know what to add to that. My mind just went somewhere different.
Yeah.
But like one thing I thought about with this was that I do think you can fall into a cycle of deconstruction, and you just never get out of it because there's always going to be something there for you to rethink. There's always going to be something there for you to doubt or question. There's always going to be something. You know what I mean? Like I think you can.
I do know what you mean, but I don't think it's. It sounded like you were thinking that that's a bad thing, and I don't know that it is, and I don't know that you can ever avoid it unless, like I said, you just think at some point you've got it all figured out.
Well, so like I think there is a difference though. Like there's some. I'm just not naming it rightly, maybe, but there is, I think, a version of that is not good. Like I think if you're never reconstructing, I do think that's a negative, but I think that that doesn't mean that you don't continue to study and think, and like I'm not saying you shut your brain off,
right?
I'm not saying that there's never any. Again, I think part of what it means to be a disciple is to have those doubts. I think part of what it means to have genuine faith is, I think doubt is good evidence that your faith is genuine, actually. So I would never say that there's no room for doubt or questions or studying or thinking, because I think that's part of being a disciple.
Right.
Is a student is what it means. Like the word disciple means student. So like I don't think that you ever stop doing that, but there is a certain version of that I think it just keeps you in a cycle of never reconstructing. There's nothing. It's just a constant negation and not ever any sort of like positive forward movement. You know what I mean? It's always a backing out of this thing rather than moving forward into anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was just sitting here thinking, it's kind of crazy. I mean, earlier I said deconstruction never stops, but when you do start deconstructing, so for example, like, what do I believe about baptism? What do I believe about gifts of the Spirit? So just throwing out random examples, like, do we ever eventually run out of topics, the things that we have to rethink?
I don't think so.
And do we ever, like, with me, there's some stuff I just don't touch because I'm like, I don't really care. Like, it's not that big of a deal to me. Like,
Well, yeah, I do. I don't know that you ever run out of topics because everything is so intertwined together. So you may like study something or rethink something and get yourself to a place where you're satisfied with where you're at on that topic. But then 6 months later, a year later, you're going to think about a completely different topic. But where you're going to come to at that new topic is going to make you have to rethink where you were previously satisfied with that topic that you'd already studied because it's affected by this other thing, right? So like, I don't think you ever necessarily, like the way you put it, was run out of things to rethink, because even when you get to a place where you're satisfied with the answers that you have for that topic that you've been rethinking, eventually you're going to come back around to something else that touches on it that you're going to have to now consider that you didn't consider before because you weren't rethinking that thing. And so
yeah,
it's all like a spider's web that's interconnected together, like you can't touch one thing without it affecting everything else. So that's my 2 cents.
it's like a circle.
Yeah, and I think it also kind of depends on, like, again, what do we call in deconstruction? Because I don't like, should there be a differentiation between just having second thoughts about something, like having a first thought and then a second thought, like rethinking something,
Right?
or because there's there's always going to be stuff to rethink, and there's going to be some things that like you don't have an answer on, but you're okay with it, and that's going to be different depending on the individual.
Yeah.
Like the kind of stuff, some of the stuff that you were saying earlier. Like, I mean, I have learned some stuff about baptism, but like, there's one thing that like I haven't really spent a lot of time thinking about, or I mean, in a positive way, a reconstructing way at least, of like this, like the spiritual gifts, like speaking in tongues in particular.
Yeah.
Like, but that's not really something that I've like bothered myself. Like, where I'm at right now, I'm just kind of like, I'm fine with not opening that can. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's going to be different for every individual. Every individual is going to have like certain things where they're like, I don't care about that right now. Yeah. So like all of that is going to vary depending on who you are, I think.
Right. And from what you were saying, I think deconstruction is something that happens to you in the process of rethinking things. I don't think rethinking things and deconstruction are the same thing, but I think deconstruction is something that happens to you in the process of rethinking. And what I mean by that is you can ask questions and have doubts, study things that you're interested in, and get a new depth of understanding to that. And the result of that isn't necessarily a deconstruction, right? A deconstruction is like a tearing down. So like, but if you study one of those topics and due to that, it's like a brick being pulled out of the construction that causes this entire section of the faith structure to collapse on itself. That's a deconstruction. So it's not the rethinking and deconstruction aren't necessarily the same thing, but I think deconstruction is something that involuntarily happens as a result of the rethinking. Doesn't always. It's just depends on where you land with that certain thing, and and the way your theological structure, so to speak, is constructed. Can it withstand pulling that brick out and it doesn't really affect anything else that you can think of yet? Because I'm sure it does at some place, you just haven't thought of it yet. Or do you pull out that brick and the whole structure collapses?
Yeah, I don't know. I really do think that, like, at least where I'm at right now, what my head is saying to tell my mouth to say right now is like, I really do think that in some instance, if we're just going to label all of this deconstruction, then everybody has to deconstruct. Then like it's just inevitable, I think. Other than those rare folks that we were talking about earlier, they just never think about anything.
The mindless drones.
But like, I really do think that like I think it's not only do I think you have to. Well, I say when I say I think you have to do it, I really mean like I think that's part of what it means to be a disciple. It's what it means to be a student.
Exactly.
Like that's what like Jesus deconstructed some stuff.
You have heard it said.
Or like, but like even like the disciples, his disciples, they had some deconstructing that happened, you know?
Yeah, you know what's funny about it is they're actually, some of them are getting a deconstruction. Like Peter gets his vision of clean and unclean foods well after Jesus has died and
Right.
resurrected and all that stuff. Like that's that is a sort of deconstruction for where he was. I mean, it's a complete restructure of his faith, you know, to now accepting the Gentiles in to where, like, I mean, I would consider that a deconstruction of what he had previously.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, I mean Peter's the really obvious one, right? There's all kinds of moments whenever you can point to it with where Peter, where there's things being deconstructed, like in the garden, he's pulling out the sword.
Yep.
Like that's a moment of deconstruction, I think. And there's, you know, he says, Simon, Satan has asked to sift you like wheat. Well, what is that sifting if not like a sort of like crisis of faith moment?
Right.
You know, and then, but he says, I've prayed for your faith. And then he says, when you have, he doesn't phrase it as like an if. He says, when you, how's it worded?
I'm sorry, but I can't hear you say that without hearing you in the voice saying "Sifting like a wheat." Sorry.
Simon, oh Simon, Satan has asked to sift you like wheat. Satan has asked to sift you like wheat. No, but like he says, he's asked to sift you like wheat, and when you return, I don't remember how it's worded, but strengthen your brothers. In other words, like I've prayed for your faith, and when you come through this, because you're gonna come through it,
Right.
when you come through this, strengthen your brothers. And one thing that I thought about with that in particular, although I do want to go back to like just this is just a part of discipleship, and there's other examples, but like with this specific example, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast in the first place. That Jesus said you are going to come through this, and when you do, strengthen your brothers. Like I do this. Part of what this whole project was for me was I did want to help people who have been who have deconstructed, who are deconstructing, who will deconstruct. I want to provide a helpful voice in that.
Right.
You know, and I don't know. I think at certain times during the podcast so far, I think, at least I'll speak for myself, I feel like I've lost sight of that.
Yeah.
And talking about this again has kind of just reminded me of that. And it's really that scripture there really reminded me of that. That like that's what the whole goal of this was for me is, and that's what I think the goal of discipleship should be. It's to take your experience that you've had in your process of discipleship,
Right.
and then go and strengthen other people.
Well, that's ultimately what the Great Commission was, right? It's basically at the end, the culmination of the gospel, you know, account. It's Jesus talking to his disciples, saying, "Go out and make disciples of all the nations. You know, go ahead and make disciples out of everyone." So, like, that's ultimately the culmination of it all. That's the end goal. Is that now that you're a disciple, go make more.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, there's tons of examples you could give of the disciples unlearning, certain things. And, but we've used the example a ton of times. But again, Peter says, "Where else would we go?" Like whenever Jesus asks if they're going to leave, if the 12 that are left are going to leave, there in John 6, he says, where else would we go?
That one is actually, it's funny enough you bring up that verse, because that one has been a big one for me over the course of this from my original deconstruction on, because there's been times, I mean, I've talked about it on this show where I was like, I don't know if I believe even any of this stuff anymore. And, some of my wrestling with the state of our world and our country and like the church's role in that has made me question at times if it's even good to be a part of anymore. But then it always comes back around to, where else am I going to go? You know what I mean? Like, where else would I go? it can be a tumultuous relationship. It can be painful. It can be hard, but aren't all relationships. But where else am I going to go? Like, this is the tradition that I was born and raised into, exclusively, so where else am I going to go?
And like again, going back to what it means to be a disciple, like when I said at the beginning about abiding with or staying with Jesus, like that's what Peter says. That's what he's saying in that moment. I'm staying with you.
Right.
I'm sticking with you. I don't understand what you're saying right now. I don't. He never said. He didn't. He never said. Those other guys that just took off, clearly they don't know what you're talking about, but I do.
Right.
So I'm going to stick around. He just says, where else would we go? Like, in other words, I don't understand. I don't know that I have any clue what you just said to me, but I'm staying with you. I'm going to stick with you,
Right.
no matter what. It's about faithfulness. It's about faithfulness and staying with, again, abiding with. That's part of what it means to be a disciple, I think. And that's where I think that, I think there is maybe that distinction between discipleship and deconstruction. If your deconstruction means not staying with, not abiding with, then I think maybe that's no longer discipleship. If it's a temporary thing, then maybe, which I guess for my eschatology, I think it's all, I guess, temporary for everybody, even if it is something that happens here and now.
Yeah, I don't think that they're definitely, I would never say that they're the same thing. I mean, I think you summed it up there perfectly, really. I think that my personal experience of discipleship is that it inevitably led to deconstruction, but that doesn't mean they're the same thing, right? One led to the other. And then I actually think that my deconstruction led me into further discipleship, which has led me into further deconstruction, which has led me into further discipleship, which has led me into further deconstruction, which is why, like what you said earlier about it being a cycle that never ends, like that's my experience with it, is because it's almost like a circular cycle that, like, discipleship led me to deconstruction, which led me to a deeper discipleship. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but that's so contrary to sort of the narrative around deconstruction of, like, you said it earlier, it's sort of demonized and looked down upon. It's a bad thing, but like, it was literally my deconstruction and my experience with it was that it was a product of me entering into discipleship and entering into that, and then it led to deconstruction, but then the end result was that it led me into a deeper, and there's been highs and lows, valleys and mountains throughout that whole process, right? There always is and there always will be. But at the end of the day, like, I feel like where I'm at today with it is, I mean, several people would probably disagree with this, but I feel like I'm in a much healthier place than I've ever been, really, probably. But I still probably have more questions than I've ever had. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
that's what I was recently reading a book that is more where I came from instead of where I'm at now. And it was talking about some of the aspects of Jesus's life, but told through that sort of my old paradigm of sort of penal substitutionary kind of stuff. And I was just reading it from the where I'm at now and was thinking, like, my vision of this is so much nicer than that I would have previously affirmed. Like, at the time that I affirmed these things, I thought that this story, my conception of this story, was beautiful. But where I'm at today, I look at that and I'm like, that's not even a good story. Like, it's not even good. So
yeah.
But
I've randomly been on a PSA kick lately, like watching a ton of stuff on it. Have I told you about that?
No.
Well, because, like, there's been some uproar. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know, one of you guys may have seen some of this, but, like, there's been a little bit of an uproar in the Christian apologetics community about Andrew Rillera's book, The Lamb of the Free. You heard me talk about that, right?
No, I don't even know who that is.
Oh, I thought I talked about it on here before.
You know how I feel about apologetics.
Well, Andrew Rillera is not an apologist.
Oh, okay.
An apologist, but his book has been out for a little bit, but like really well known, like popular pastor and speaker and podcaster, and I think I'm pretty sure he's got a podcast. John Mark Comer.
I've heard that name.
like tweeted or something, like a picture of the Lamb of the Free book, and was saying that made reference to it being that it might be the final exegetical knockout blow to PSA.
Actually, now that you're saying all this, I do remember you telling me this.
Oh yeah, and there's been tons of people in the evangelical apologetics world that have felt the need to respond, to John Mark Comer and to Andrew Riera, and so I've been watching a lot of stuff on that, which has gotten me back into like I've just been watching some stuff on PSA, listening to some stuff on that, some more.
Sounds like a terrible time.
Remember that cover band Apologetics?
Yeah.
They just covered like Christian songs.
It was like X, like the letter X at the end.
Yeah, Apologetics.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was
I
this,
do
like,
remember that.
late
It was
90s?
made
Early 2000s or late 90s?
yeah.
Around that time frame, yeah. Faux show.
For sure.
So, question for you.
Oh, okay.
Are you ready?
Born ready.
No, I am just kind of curious because I know that like me and Sal, our experience of deconstruction is different. But like I do wonder like what you like. I guess a couple things that I would be curious to hear you talk about is like, I mean, you've talked a little bit about your own experience of like rethinking some things, but then also like I'm curious to know what you think the general, like I don't know how much like we haven't really talked about this a whole lot, so I don't know. Like I know that like in the world that me and Sal kind of live in, the stuff that we've read and listened to, like there's a certain conception around a certain there's different ways of viewing the deconstruction in that world, like the Alyssa Childers of the world, like there's like where she literally demonizes it, but like I just am curious, I guess, from your perspective, based on what you've read, what you've heard, like what do you think the average person thinks about deconstruction? Do you think that like do you think most people think of it as like evil and like you're demon possessed? Like what do you think that the popular conception of it is?
I think like the evangelical, I guess old time. I'm trying to think of a good way of saying it without like making these people sound bad. But I think like honestly, people like mom and dad love you to death, but like that group of people when they're on their age, I think when they hear it, they think it's kind of maybe a spirit or like it's, and I don't really think they fully really understand what you're doing. I think they think that it's just like
a rebellious thing.
Yeah, like, oh, well, I'm just going to throw everything away and then make up my own mind about what I want to believe, which kind of is what you're doing. But I think, I think it's maybe misunderstood by that generation of folks. Pentecostal, like super strong evangelical. I think they think probably negatively about it. I think a big part of the world don't really even talk about it or really care. Just from like people that I know, friends of mine that are Christian and some that are not Christian. I know like a lot of like bands that I listen to that were formerly Christian bands or whatever. They hate to use the word deconstruction. Like, they just like to use the word rethinking things.
You can avoid a lot of conflict.
So I think the word deconstruction scares people off because they don't really understand what it means or fully what you're doing when you do that.
You know what I hate? I hate that too because I think it's the perfect word. Like it, at least from my experience of it, it's literally, it's like I described a while ago. It's like if you imagine all of your different doctrines and different your beliefs are as bricks that hold together this entire structure that is the theology. And it's literally like one of those bricks gets knocked out, because that's usually how it happens. It's not even something. It's not like I'm going to decide to completely change my mind about this one topic. It's something that generally just happens to you. Like, you can't control what you do and don't believe, you know?
Yeah.
So then this brick gets knocked out, but unknowingly it's a weight-bearing brick. Like, that knocks out more, and then it literally, the structure just collapses, and it's like a deconstruction. Like, it just collapses, and then you're left with the rubble. Like, what do I do with this? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, that's why I love the term, and I think it describes my experience perfectly. But I think what gets missed in it is that it wasn't never a conscious decision. It's not like I woke up one day and was like, I'm just going to blow up my whole faith. That'll be fun.
Right. Yeah.
My entire life that revolves around church and church community, I'm just going to blow that whole thing up. That'll be great. Like, it's not like I just decided that one day. It's something that happened to me. It's not something that I intended to happen.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. As far as like my personal like deconstruction thoughts or things that I've said or done, I guess, and I don't know that really the correlation, but a lot of it does seem to be like social issues, which I don't want to bring politics into it necessarily, but like that directly
That's a big
kind of
part of it, though.
it does correlate, like how I feel about certain sects of people, SECTS,
Right.
but also I guess as like, but I feel like I've always I didn't really have to deconstruct that much because I was already kind of there. Like, one thing about mom and dad, and to their credit, they've always taught us to love everyone.
Yeah.
They never, I mean, I'm speaking for myself, but Shawn, you can speak up if you think differently, but they always, regardless of some of the 80s, the satanic panic stuff in the 80s that they were following along with, the prayer warriors at church and stuff, breaking our Boys to Men CDs and,
Right.
the Metallica CDs and stuff like that. I mean, I mean, they raised us really, pretty awesome as far as how to treat people,
Right.
not look down on people, not make fun of people. Just that part of it, they really got right. And so I never had to deconstruct that part of it, which I think a lot of people that were raised Pentecostal, holiness, whatever you want to call it, they seem to be the major people that have to deconstruct or that do deconstruct, because specifically with Christ's gospel, we were literally spoon-fed every single thing. Like, literally, there was a person that wrote out notes that was distributed to your pastor, your local pastor, who then preached from those notes. They were literally giving you everything, and you just had to accept it. Like, so I think most deconstruction, not most, but a big part of people that have had to deconstruct or that need to deconstruct are probably have some type of holiness, Pentecostal background.
And I also don't know if this was just unique to our own experiences or if it is just that genre of Christianity as a whole. But
yeah,
I remember pre-deconstruction, there being a real sort of almost a pride, I would say, about having knowledge that nobody else had, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that sort of it breeds the idea of thinking things through and like when you sort of base your identity upon your scholarship and your idea of like, we've got the answers, we're really studying, like when you pride yourself on how much you study and read the Bible, like that's the breeding ground for rethinking things, right? So I think it's almost, I don't know if, like you said, that maybe they need to deconstruct more, but maybe it's because that culture is more conducive to rethinking things.
Well, I mean, I don't mean to trash Christ's gospel, but I mean, they definitely have some of that going on, or at least they did when we were part of it. I can't speak for it now. I haven't been there for a while, but we're the elect. We're the 144,000. We have this knowledge that has been gifted to our leader, and it is almost like a superior. We know the truth. We know the message, in quotations, like. And then when you start, but I mean, I will say, so like our founding pastor, Brother Hinton, and then Brother Ronnie after him, I never once heard either one of those men say we're the only ones going to heaven.
Right.
They always said, Baptists, Catholics, there's going to be multitudes of people up there. And so that was never anything locally with our pastors that was taught to us. But since we were connected to, Christ's gospel, then we did have to hear a lot of that stuff. But I just, like I was telling Shawn this too earlier, and I don't really go with the subject, but I've never felt like I bought in fully. Like, and I don't know if you ever do, to a certain, like, I don't want to call it like denomination or whatever, but like the different stages our churches have always been through, like when we were Christ Gospel, and then when we were kind of non-denominational is kind of what you call us now, I guess. I've just never really fully bought in. Like, I just can't make myself just be like, this is 100% what I believe. I'm going this way, buying the hat and the shirt, on the monthly membership. This is
And like I said, I don't think you can choose that. You can't choose what to believe.
Yeah. So that's just, I don't know. That's something that I was kind of thinking about the other day. Just like, I don't know how to really put it into words. I've always kind of struggled with like putting my whole heart into, I mean, I believe in God. I believe in Jesus, obviously, Christian, whatever you want to call it, like that. But just being 100% like, this is 100% what I.
Yeah, this group of people has it all figured out.
I guess. I don't know. I know what I'm trying to say, but I just can't really word it. Like just struggles of like, like back when we were kind of in the Pentecostal realm, like there was a lot of demonstrative worship, running around the church, fighting off the spirits, and
right.
I always kind of was just like, nah, dude. Like part of it's probably because I was like shy and bashful, but part of it was almost like I was like, no, I'm not gonna force that, like I'm not gonna go up there and just pretend like I'm fighting off demons so like someone will leave me alone. Like, and I'm not gonna like, even as simple as like raising my hands, like sometimes, and that's maybe something that I'm wrong about, but like I almost am like expecting like something to be like almost like a supernatural, like I feel like I have to raise my hands, which I know that's probably not the right way to approach that one, but like I don't know, I've just never really been a very demonstrative worshiper and that kind of stuff, like in those times when we were in Pentecostal churches. And I don't know, that's why I've never really felt, I guess, super Pentecostal, I guess. Like, I don't know, maybe I've never been.
That's sort of why, like for me, I'm not an overly emotional person. And we've talked about that a lot. Like I don't cry a lot, but in the same realm, like I don't get mad a lot either. But like those emotions, those sort of emotions, like any sort of emotion, whether it be those lows or even highs, they hit me hard, but then they're gone like that. Like I don't really express, not. I'm a human being, obviously, so I do express emotion, but it takes a lot more for me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just naturally not someone who demonstrates a lot of emotion. And for me, a lot of that church stuff was about like a demonstration of emotion,
Oh, for sure.
And so, like, some people are more emotional. And so, yeah, like, you're going to see it out of those people a lot more often. But it doesn't mean that they're somehow more holy or they're more getting more, something different out of it. They just have a different reaction to it, in the same way that we could watch a movie and Shawn will cry his eyes out, and I'm not going to cry a tear. It's not because I'm a cold-hearted SOB.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it was very emotionally driven. I mean, almost like I don't know, like a concert type situation where you're like, all right, here we go. We're going to take it up a notch, and the music gets louder, and the adrenaline starts pumping, and the emotions. And next thing you know, the kids are, fighting the demons and stuff like that. And I'm not making light. I'm not making fun. Maybe I did, but I didn't mean to.
In good humor.
Yeah. I lived it. So like, I feel like I have a right to kind of,
right.
Express it, but yeah, very emotionally charged. And I'm emotional, I guess, to a point about certain things. Like, I don't know. I have my soft spots, kids and having kids and stuff like that. It's kind of caused me to be a little more emotional, but I don't know. I'm not really sure. Did I even answer any of those questions that you asked me, Shawn?
I award you no points.
May God have mercy on your soul. Yeah.
I would say my experience with some of those experiences that you're talking about was, for me, it was fully emotional. Like, and I can say that comfortably now, and I would never say that that's what it is for everybody else. But like, I'm talking about those, you called it, like people fighting demons off or whatever, and like people would refer to it as shouting at
Sure.
church. Like I participated in that for a time. But for me, it's literally what it was. Is I had to go to a place of like, it's not that it wasn't real, so to speak. But what it was me focusing all of my emotions sort of in a effort to sort of to build up to that sort of explosion of emotion, right? And so for me, it's not like I ever faked any of those things, but for me, I don't think it's some sort of spiritual thing either. I think it's just a cognitive, emotional.
Yeah.
And there's no problem with that. To me, it's not a problem. Like, I don't say that as if it's a negative. Like, well, that's just an emotional. No, like, we're emotional beings. Like, you need to express your emotions, and expressing your emotions is fine. But also recognize we all express our emotions differently.
Sure.
Yeah. Right, and I actually think that is thoroughly Pentecostal. Yeah. That's one thing I was thinking whenever you were talking. Like, I think by the time we received the Pentecostal tradition, I think it was just like the things associated with Pentecostals were not that those things weren't a part of the Pentecostal tradition, but it's not the entirety of it, right. And it's not really even the real heart of it. Like, the heart of the Pentecostal tradition is an openness to the movement of the Spirit, and that can express itself as wild and extremely emotional, but it doesn't have to be. It's just an openness to the wild. It's an openness to the unexpected,
to diversity. We're diverse individuals. All of us are.
Yeah. It's an openness to. It was in a sense trying to break out of. It was a deconstruction movement. It was a breaking out of the molds of what appeared to be, at least, like stale. We're just coming here, and we're just going to come, and we're going to say these prayers and do this, and it's there's so much structure to it that it was a movement, sort of like a deconstructionist movement. There's so much structure here. We want an environment where there's more freedom to express and more freedom to worship than what is allowed in this more structured movement. So, like, that's really what, at the heart of the Pentecostal tradition, that's what it is. That's what it was started as. And then
we wanted more Shire and less Mordor.
Right.
Sure.
I never really thought about that, but that is true. It's almost like a deconstruction. Sure.
Right. I mean, I think that in a sense it was a deconstruction movement. Yeah, just like the Reformation was a deconstruction movement. Like, a lot of people don't want to claim that, especially folks that are Reformed nowadays that that aren't fans of deconstruction. They would never admit that themselves. But that's what the Reformation was. It was a deconstruction movement.
If you're a Protestant, you are the child of a deconstruction movement.
Exactly. But yeah, just to go on back to what you were saying though about being Pentecostal, like, to me that's not evidence that you're not Pentecostal or that you're weird or anything like that. It's like that's no. I mean, the whole point of the Pentecostal tradition was freedom. That freedom doesn't have to mean it's no longer a freedom to express yourself in worship if everybody has to do the same thing. Yeah. If everybody has to go up there and
or even
shout and scream, and
even feeling the pressure to do something that you don't feel like you want to do, like, that's not freedom.
Right.
That was something that I think we all three probably have experienced at some point with the previous organization that we were with, and it's almost like you were praised, or oh man, Cam really got a breakthrough tonight. You should have seen him. He's up there shouting the house down. You
Right.
know, and it's like, but I never did that. You know, I wasn't a shouter, but
I shouted more than you did.
yeah, you were kind of the shouter, Shawn. But I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but didn't you say, looking back, some of it was kind of done for?
There were times whenever it was forced, yes.
Yeah, that's what I don't want to put you on the spot like that, but
I do think there was legitimately times when it wasn't.
Mhm.
And I don't know what to do with that. But I do feel like there were times when I didn't feel like I was in control.
Yeah.
And there were certainly times whenever I was like, I'm just going to do this because it's what I'm supposed to do. You know, so like,
Yeah.
there definitely were times when I did. The problem that I have with it, and this is just one of those things that, like, in the Pentecostal tradition, it's just sort of like a paradox. It just is what it is. It's kind of like but like the culminating fruit of the Spirit is self-control. So if you don't feel like you're in control, are you in the Spirit? That's the question that I have. I'm not saying that you aren't.
Right.
I'm saying for me, and looking back on my experience of it, if I felt out of control and the culminating fruit of the Spirit is self-control, was I actually in the Spirit or not? And I'm not saying one way or the other whether I was or wasn't, but it is something that I think about in terms of that experience. But at the same time, if I didn't feel like I was in control, then what had me? You know, if it was, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I don't mean that to imply there's some sort of like other spirit,
Right.
but like I just mean like, I don't know.
Yeah, for me, I just go back. I mean, I can only speak to my own personal experiences, so I wouldn't try to explain your experiences away, or whatever. But, for me, I think that when you have those intense emotional releases and responses, you do feel out of control, right? Like, you ever hear people talk about that have committed like violent crimes like murder, and they'll talk about just not even being in control and blacking out. Like, that's their emotional state, led to that. I would argue some people would still probably say it was spiritual, maybe, but for me, it's just emotion. So like, because every experience that I can have, I can look back on now in those situations and be like, and it's really hard to put language to, because people are going to hear me saying that and be like, oh, so you think it's fake, you don't believe in it. Like, no, I'm not saying that at all. Like, it was a real emotional, like, it's not like I pretended to have an emotional release. Those were like, that was a real reaction to what I was feeling at the time. It doesn't mean some spirit possessed me to make me act like a madman, you know what I mean? But like,
Right.
it's hard to phrase that in language to where I feel like people aren't gonna hear, well, he just thinks it's all fake. Like, no.
Yeah. And we've all seen some examples of how, when people do get free, I mean, it can be violent.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we've seen some people got like severely hurt.
Or damage property.
Damaged property. Yeah. I'm thinking of one example right now. I won't mention names, but yeah, there might have been a guitar amp that got annihilated by a gentleman. But yeah, I've seen a lot of things. Pew jumping, dudes jumping through glass.
And I mean,
yeah. So I don't know.
and I mean, not to harp on the emotion thing, but like, that's sort of what the whole thing is designed to do, really. Like, when you think about like the way that the music is employed and I mean, I'm not a musician, but I have heard a lot of like worship team musicians talk about that, about how a lot of it is, particularly at some of the like the bigger mega churches, like their music is specifically curated to get a certain emotional response. Like, they're emotion farming, you know what I mean? Because it's the whole thing is meant to be an emotional response.
Well, we're both musicians. I mean, me and Shawn, I can tell you for a fact that I know how to drive a song, like how to create emotions.
Yeah.
And I know how to not do it. Like, we've been playing music so long that like I know the spiel, or I'm trying to think of the word. I know the emotions. Like,
I know how to play the game. That's how I.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say game, but I didn't know if that was too like insensitive or whatever. But Yeah, like
maybe it is.
yeah, I can build. I mean, I know how to lay on them symbols, and next thing you know, it's creating an emotion, and but if you're just sitting there, just kind of la di da, whatever, people are not going to do it. But
That's what we're talking about now is actually kind of funny. Is not I don't know even remember how we got to the talking about emotions and stuff.
I think because you were talking about deconstructing a little bit of your own experience, you know.
for sure.
But that's why I always go to having people, like when people really talk about the spirit. I say always. I probably shouldn't say always because that's not true. But like why one of the first when people talk a lot about the spirit and want to define, well, what do you mean by spirit when you say that? Because then I think a lot of times like it's just a word that we haven't really thought too much about, like trying to define the word. I mean, I'm not talking about us because we talk about this weekly, so we've thought about it, but just your general run of the mill, like people that haven't spent a whole lot of time thinking about it, that's just the language that they've heard through their whole life. Not like when you shout, that's the spirit. Well, okay, well, what is that? What's the spirit? Like maybe if you hear me talking about emotions and you're like, well, that's terrible. No, it's the spirit. Well, like, well, okay, what's the spirit? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and I definitely think that I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts on it. I don't know which ones I want to come out of my mouth and which ones don't. But I really do think that like when you're most in the spirit, quote unquote, whenever you're most open to the spirit leading you, whenever you're most in tune with the spirit, maybe is a better way to put it. You're going to be your most true self. And you're a human being, and humans experience emotions. You know, like it's so I just say that to say that like with all of the talk that we've had so far, I definitely don't want to say that just even if the music is specially curated to create emotion, having the emotion itself, I guess there's a little bit of a tension there because the emotion itself isn't a bad thing. I don't think going into this, I guess what I say there's a tension is like, I don't think experiencing the emotion is a bad thing. And in one sense, I don't know that you can help it if you're in that atmosphere and it's specifically curated for that.
right.
Then I mean, you're going to have whatever experience you have if you're in that atmosphere.
Right.
It does make me wonder, should we be? Like, is it wrong for the worship team to be intentionally trying to make you emotional or not? Like, and is that even, I don't know, actually don't even think that that's even something that at least in our church, I don't know if that's something that's like intentional. Like it's not like we're doing a lot of research into like
you guys don't go to your practice in the morning before church and it's like, okay, so the mood that we want people crying up front, so we're gonna do this song.
Exactly.
Like that's not happening.
Like I've never asked Chat GPT what chords create certain emotions.
Maybe some churches are doing that, but
Wouldn't doubt it. But I mean, on the secular side of it, like I don't know. I'll use Sleep Token for an example. Like that dude writes about like things that do create emotion, failed relationships that do speak to people and create emotions. Also, I think it's really kind of the same thing. It's just different worlds.
And that's really what you guys are hinting on is what I was trying to express in saying that to me it's all emotional, but that doesn't mean it's not real. Like that's why I was struggling to find language for it, because I feel like at least me from 15 years ago, if you would have told me it was just your emotions, I would have thought that meant that it's not real, that it's something that's manufactured. And no, like what you said, having those emotions is uniquely human. Like that's what makes us what makes us a human being. And so it's not fake because it's emotion.
Yeah.
Like but that's hard to explain if you've kind of have the mindset that like, no, it's a spirit, and to say it's emotion is a blasphemy of the spirit. And like, oh no, like that's not what I'm saying. Like I do think it's emotion, but emotions are real. Like there are real, I mean, me and you have talked about this a little bit, but there are kind of what you were saying about, is it wrong to play up on people's emotions? Like, there are people that I think have experienced real, perhaps healing or sozo, because those emotions were cultivated within them, and it moved them to respond to those emotions, which have potentially changed their life. You know what I mean? Like, there are people, I'm sure, who were drug addicts who experienced an intense emotional shift within them at the presence of God, and have given up drugs, and their life is wholly different now because they were allowed to facilitate that emotion. And maybe even some of that emotion that they felt was intentionally curated, but it did so not as an effort of manipulation or creating a fake anything. It did so for the intent of having that person feel. Like, that's where change comes, is feel. It's one thing to have empathy for people. Just like, oh, it's that person's hungry, that's bad. Or you see a picture of, someone suffering, and that's bad. It takes it to a whole nother level when you can put yourself in that person's shoes and feel what they're feeling, or you've lived it before and can feel it. Like, feeling is what drives that change, that metanoia, that's part of it. So I don't know that saying it's an emotion is not a negative or a bad thing,
You're describing empathy, and that's a sin.
If empathy is a sin, then sin well.
I'm the chief of sinners if empathy is a sin.
I'm not, but I wish I was, if empathy was a sin. I need to have more empathy, but...
Yeah, I was just silly.
I feel like I need to say, too, like, when I was talking about, like, fighting demons and making light of all that stuff, like, I wasn't trying to be disrespectful in any sense of the word. I'm not, like... I feel like, honestly, you guys were being a little bit more sympathetic to it than I was, honestly. and that's not what I meant. I'm not making fun of it. I'm not saying it's not real. I'm saying I personally never felt that draw when I was in those emotional situations.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe not like to not cry or something like that, but in that emotion, but like to actually move my body uncontrollably due to some type of emotion that was being either, put on in me supernaturally or being curated for me by the praise band or whoever. Not saying it was wrong, not saying the people that still do it are wrong. I'm just saying it wasn't something I ever felt like comfortable with. And
right.
And if you can't laugh at yourself a little bit.
Well, yeah. And like I said, that's why I said earlier, it's like I grew up in this stuff. So like
anybody who's spent any time in a Pentecostal style church shouting and carrying on, you've done some silly stuff. People have laughed at you.
For sure. Yeah.
Come on, just get over it.
No, for sure. Yeah. Anyway, I didn't want to, don't cancel me. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I don't really have a smooth segue, but there was something I wanted to circle back to just because I didn't really get to flesh it out too much. But whenever I said, basically at the top of this, when we got into the topic anyway, when I said that, like, I feel like if I'd been discipled in a particular way, I may not have deconstructed. First of all, I don't actually know that that's true. I think that deconstruction may have been inevitable. It just would have been different things I deconstructed.
Right.
But what I mean, to just kind of like flesh out a little bit what I mean by that, just because I want to further explain for one, just because I just want to. But on the other,
this is our show and we'll do what we want.
On the other hand, but also because I don't want to just kind of leave it at that. If there are people that played a part in my discipleship growing up, I don't want to just leave it at that. I want to explain more what I mean. So, like, what I really am getting at there is that I feel like, and I've actually never seen this movie. Have either of you guys ever seen the movie Gravity? Sandra Bullock?
I can't. It's not coming to.
I've heard someone talk about it, but I've never actually seen it. But they said that there was a scene in there where someone, I guess, told her to pray, and she realized, like, I don't know how to do that. Like, no one ever taught me. And like that when I heard someone else was talking about the movie and they said that, when I heard that, it really like struck a chord with me, because I feel like so much of what I was handed, it was more imitation. What I learned was more by imitating, or by, like, I don't really feel like there was a ton of, again, this is just my experience. I'm not trying to dog anybody, but my experience was, I feel like there wasn't a ton of, there was a lot of like, you'll figure it out, but I didn't. I
Right.
didn't figure it out. I had to figure that crap out on my own
Yeah.
in my mid-20s. I didn't just figure it out. Oh, we don't have to teach you how to pray. You'll figure it out. I don't have to teach you how to read the Bible. You'll figure it out. Well, no, man, I didn't. I didn't figure it out. I mean, I have, but it was of my own efforts, really. And so that's just such a sad, if you just think about that, like that, what the movie quote, what that brought out of me was this, like, and you can tell I'm kind of getting emotional right now just thinking about it. Like, yeah, like that's something I really resonate with. Like, I feel like I was not taught these things. And like because in that movie, I'm assuming, I don't know, like I said, I've never seen it, but like when she needed it, it wasn't there. The skill
Right.
wasn't there. Like what should have been formed in her was not there when she needed it. And dadgummit, when I needed it, when I started having those questions, it's because it's not that the questions wouldn't have come. It's just that I would have been able to handle them differently.
Right.
Had I been formed in such a way that I knew what to do with them when I needed it. It would have been there when I needed it. But it wasn't. And like that sucks, And that's the story of so many people that have deconstructed, is like, I really feel like, and again, I'm not blaming anyone, because a lot of this is just cycles that repeat themselves, like at some point along the line, because even in early Pentecostals, or specifically with Wesley, which is where the Pentecostal tradition comes out of, like, he was way more in tune with the traditions and the early church fathers and the good stuff than the people that formed us. Like somewhere along the line, it was like priorities changed, or what someone thought was important to pass on was different than the people before them. Like however it happens, it happens. I don't know how.
Right. Everybody's just doing their best.
Right. Exactly.
With the situation, the circumstances, their own knowledge. Like, we've never lived this life before. We're all doing our best here. You know what I mean? So, like, yeah, maybe people hear what you said and, what we've all said and be like, well, I'm sorry I wasn't perfect for your... No, I didn't expect you to be perfect.
Right,
That's not
exactly.
the point. Like, you did the best, like all of the people that were part of my past did the best that they could,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, thanks for saying that, for sure. Because like I don't want, again, I'm trying to be very, I mean, the words coming to mind is charitable. That's not what I mean though. But like I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to like not hurt anyone's feelings. It's not a personal thing. It's not a personal attack on anyone, for sure. I mean, I should just stop talking because you said it. You said it way better than I'm saying.
I think
now.
anybody that's raised kids can probably understand that, right? Like, we don't know what we're doing. I don't know how to be a dad. There's things I screw up, but I'm just trying my best. There's things that he's going to have to unlearn probably from me, that he's learned from me. It's not like I'm not intentionally putting this stuff into him that he's going to have to deconstruct. And I don't even necessarily mean theologically, just in life in general, but I'm doing my best. Like, it's not a something that I should feel ashamed of, that my son may have to deconstruct some things in his life that he picked up from me, because like I'm just doing the best I can with what I was given, and then the people who raised me did the best with what they were given, and then it's literally on down the line, I mean,
yeah.
I can't think of really, honestly, one person that I could actually put blame on that was like they intentionally led me astray, or they intentionally tried to make me do something that out of,
yeah, I don't think,
like I think they were just doing what they were doing, what the status quo was at the time and like what they're supposed to be doing and
Right.
what they thought was right for us. So,
Well, and I know that I've said before that like there were certain doctrines that I just accepted. Well, I didn't really know what they said. I just took them for granted as truth because I was told that they were. It wasn't until I actually learned what was being, like what the doctrine actually is, that I was able to like change my mind about it or have a new conclusion to it, right? It's because, and that's what I meant by it. It was like, I just didn't even, it's kind of the same thing as what you were saying, but, you know, a different example, but it didn't have, I wasn't given the knowledge, like, of these things, like what was actually being taught. We've talked about, you know, our past before of like neither one of our, even though we grew up in different church backgrounds, neither one of the backgrounds that we come from was steeped in high church. Like we didn't come from, like we accepted certain things, you know, as Southern Baptists, they're Trinitarians. We accepted the Trinity, but I had no idea. Like I only recently this year and last year really learned like the doctrines of the Trinity, you know, as outlined in Nicaea and you know, hypostatic union and with Chalcedon. You know, those are all things I've just now learned. They're doctrines I would have told you I affirmed, but had no idea what they meant. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And that's what I was trying to get at was like that my deconstruction of things may not have been necessary if I would have just known, like had the information firsthand, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't feel like I was catechized, I guess is maybe one way to say it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like there was a really intentional formation of like those big things.
Well, and I think part of it is, you kind of hinted at this, part of it is just sort of I think the way you phrased it was you'll figure it out, but I think part of it is like you take certain things for granted when you've like been in a certain stream or when you've viewed things through a certain paradigm for so long, you just take for granted that that's how you see it. That's just the way it is, right? Like I was thinking about that whenever you talked about you know, nobody taught you how to read the Bible. Well, like there's not a how to read the Bible. There's so many different ways to read, even just assuming there is a way to read it. You know what I mean? And I know that's not what you meant, but it's you take for granted because if you've only read it through that one lens, there's the Bible says this and that's it. But then there's like
just read it.
Yeah, just read it. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Well, no, there's so many different interpretive methods and you some people emphasize the history and culture and just there's so many allegory and symbology and numerology and there's so much that can be thrown in there, but no, just read it. You know, like you take it for granted.
Yeah.
It's that way with anything. I mean, it's not just a Bible, you know, any sort of doctrinal stuff, or like you said, the church history, traditions, like the Trinity was a good example of that. Like so many people I don't think actually know because we don't talk about it. You know, when was the last time at church, not just our church, but I'm talking about all the way through my entire life, I don't ever remember going through a study on the Trinity, ever, not once. But I've always been a Trinitarian.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But those big topics like that are just taken for granted.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's part of it. Yeah, for sure. I think that it just doesn't even occur that like this is something that needs to be thought out, explained. You know, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it, I guess. Yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down.
word Moondoggy.
We shutting her down? You seem like you're ready.
Well,
Shut her down.
I'm
Kentucky game's on.
Kentucky. Well, I'm pretty sure we're getting blown out, but
Gonzaga.
I do need to go pick up Finn.
the Zags.
Well, I am actually extremely hungry.
Yeah, I'm pretty franken hungry, fragging thirsty, and I gotta pee.
Well,
Actually, my mom sent me a text message, and it's a picture of Finn, and she said he is at the football banquet sitting with strangers.
Nice.
So, that kid's just like his mama.
Yeah, he is.
all right, we shutting her down.
Shut that girl down.
Hey.